Hey everybody, my name is Sam. I'm the writer and director for Helldivers Forever War. It's my own animated series set in the universe of Helldivers 2. We have 4 episodes out with the 5th one coming out soon. You can go watch them on the channel. They'll either be on the home tab or I'll include a playlist in the description. And we're going to talk about episode 4 today. So, let's get into it.
We now return to the exciting adventures of Captain Minesweeper and Sergeant Tell-All in today's episode of Truth Enforcers, Enforcers of Truth.
Truth Enforcers, you've gotta help me. My son failed his math test when he answered that 2 plus 2 equals 4. I think he might be a dissident.
So first of all, that is actually why is my resolution? That is actually plot coalition. I thought it would be a fun. I thought it'd be fun to have him do a cameo as loyal citizen. So it's fun to work with him on that. The about 80% of this episode was added very late into production, and the simple reason was because when we finished episode 3. It was time to work on episode 4. Episode 3 was much bigger than episodes we had done previously. But episode 4 hadn't caught up to that. And so we made episode 3, and it's 9 minutes long. It's much bigger than we had originally anticipated it. And then we go and work on episode 4, this episode, and all that we have is the scene with the escape pod. And even then, it's only about half as long. It's only about 2.5 minutes. So there were multiple reasons why that just wasn't going to work. One of the simpler reasons is that if you have a channel that, if anyone watching has a channel that's monetized, you understand the algorithmic importance is to having your video be at least 8 minutes, being at least 8 minutes long. And so for it to, but the main thing that ticked me off about it was that it was a step. It felt like a step backwards. Each episode felt like a progression in some way, shape, or form, in terms of length, in terms of production quality, in terms of narrative, story, character, voice acting, technical stuff, lighting, cinematics, particle effects. Each episode felt like some kind of increase and step forward. And then episode 4 felt like a step back in terms of length, in terms of overall content. And again, as I mentioned, the episode was just going to be the escape pod scene. It was even going to be lamer than that. The inspector was just going to walk up, unlock the escape pod, read the dude his rights or his charges, and then pop him in the head, and then blow up the escape pod, and that was going to be it. It's 2.5 minutes long. It was going to be a step down. It wasn't even going to be like I would have taken like a sidestep, but it was just going to be a step down in terms of what we were making. I didn't want to do that. But that meant that we had to rework the entire episode. And we also wanted to get it to the 8-minute mark, at least. And there are easy ways you can do that. You can extend your credits, and you can add, sections where you have to pause and read and stuff like that. That's easy. But to actually make something worth watching for people, to not feel like you wasted their time, that was challenging. So it was a quick challenge of, okay, how do we get this from 2 minutes to 8 minutes, and what content can we make that actually feels like it was worth watching? Well, then it's finding out what fits the theme of the video. Well, the theme of the video is the Truth Enforcers, and how in a totalitarian fascistic government you have to maintain your version of the truth, probably through force. Well, that's what the episode is about. What if we did like what if we showed like the public side of it? Because the main video is going to be like the kind of in the background CIA, KGB style kind of stuff. And then what if there was like a public version of how the public viewed the Truth Enforcers? Okay, well, we could do like a propaganda piece. What if we did a cartoon? What if we made it like an 80s cartoon? And is it not also funny that in the near future, they're still making really shitty 80s style propaganda cartoons? Okay, well, that's funny. Well, we could, and then it was very late in production, so it had to be something cheap and quick that we could do, which making a cheap, quick 80s cartoon fit right in. And that added Well, wouldn't you know, that also adds about a minute to our runtime. Well, we still need to add some more runtime. Okay, well, we can have a news segment at the end, and the news segment clarifies the objective of the episode further, which is that the truth is relative because it has to be enforced and a certain narrative has to be maintained. So we have the news report. Yes, there was a dissident that was killed, but he didn't have anything to say, and he was a son of a bitch, and he deserved getting executed. 9,000 charges of treason or whatever. Okay, that's another 45, 50 seconds. What else can we add? And, like, because somebody's going to come in the comments and they're going to go, oh, you're trying to hit the runtime so you can hit the ad revenue. Yes. I pay all my guys for their time and talent. My day job does not afford me to pay for this. And, I mean, it kind of does, but it did. Now, shut up. You don't even know my day job. Yeah. We got to pay for this stuff, man. I hired talented people. They're the best that I can afford. I got to get that money from somewhere. So yeah. But again, the challenge is, can we get that while also making something that people want to watch? And 242,000 views in 2 months, I think people enjoyed watching it. We're at 95,000 subscribers as of the time of recording. OBS is not happy about this format. I don't know what to do, though. But it was a challenge to get things that people were interested and engaged in. And it seemed to work. Well, but we're still short on runtime, and we'll see what we added here. We added sniper sequence, and we add some action, because we had also gotten a comment. You know, people would say, "Oh, your guys talk too much. It's an action game. They should shoot things more." It's like, well, action's really freaking hard to do. So why don't you do it? But it's also a fair criticism of, like, yeah, it's an action game. You should have a bit more action. So, okay, we can. What if we add some more fun in games? I mean, we had a little bit of action in the original version of Episode 4 anyway. We'll just stretch that out. How can we stretch that out? We've been riffing off of Saving Private Ryan for every episode anyway. What's the scene? Well, there's that sniper scene with Private Jackson. Well, he's quoting Bible verses. Well, it'd be fun if they did like a Super Earth version of that. That kind of fits within the universe. It's kind of fun. Well, what else can we do to add fun? Well, the environment for Episode 4 was originally going to be like a grassy, kind of rainy planet. Well, it turns out that's actually really hard for us to render, because the source engine is not really built to handle that kind of an environment. Grass is expensive to render, as it turns out, anyway, if you want to do it well. And then to do like rain on models, it's kind of technically difficult to figure out for where we're at. If you're on Unreal Engine, you install a plugin and you're done, but we don't use Unreal Engine. We don't use AI either, so you can't just tell your fucking chat whatever the fuck to just add rain. So, okay, well, and honestly, it's not very visually interesting anyway. Like, shooting things in overcast is boring and it's bland, and, you know, okay, well, let's change the environment. All right, well, what other environments are in the game? What about a moon planet? I like the moon planets. That's actually kind of cool. It's a low atmosphere. It's very harsh lighting. It allows for very intense bright lights and very deep shadows and high contrast, and, well, that'd be cool. And, you know, what if we did low gravity? Well, that'd be cool. So now we got a sniper scene on the moon in low gravity quoting fictional Bible verses. Let's fucking go. Like, even if it's only for 60 seconds, and it's not the best thing we've ever done, but it's a hell of a lot better than what it was. Like, I don't know if I've released it yet, but if you see the action that we had previously, which is like nothing, it's a hell of a lot better. And then we added the minigun scene, and then we take that's its own thing, and we kind of ham that up and make that a little more action-y. So I don't think they're the greatest action pieces I've ever made, but, you know, they worked. They were serviceable. So that's where all this stuff came from. And then we get to the meat of it. And we'll get to the meat of it here in a second. But this episode is not my favorite, but it is one of my favorites in that it came a long way. And we added a lot in a very short span of time. And it's easily one of our most popular episodes. It does about average on the horizontal, but the shorts format, I mean, it exploded on shorts format. That went ballistic.
Holy unholy abominations against all that is free, democratic, and prosperous, Captain Minesweeper. We've got to act fast. You're right, Sergeant Tell-All. Quick, to room 101.
Captain Minesweeper, Sergeant Tell-All.
My brother did the voices for the guys in red, the Bloodhounds. Derpothemagnificent. You can check him out on YouTube. He's a Let's Player. There's a lot of stuff on Terraria if any of y'all are interested in that. And half-decent voice actor as well.
Think liberty.
I say that because he's not professional. But, so, anyway. I don't know what that has to do with the quality of... Fuck it.
You're here.
It's 4 a.m.
Were you able to save my child?
No. Here's a new one.
2 + 2 = 5.
Okay, I shouldn't have given the kid a robot voice, but we were pressed for time.
Wow! Thank you, Truth Enforcers. I love my new obedient child much, much more than that old bad one.
Don't thank us, citizen. Thank the Ministry of Truth. And remember, children, if you're having trouble telling truth from lies, always keep this simple phrase in mind. Truth. It's what's enforced.
I love that whole bit.
Liberty.
It fits pretty well into the I think it fits pretty well into the whole
In peace.
it offers a juxtaposition to what we see the Truth Enforcers actually as, and it gives a public narrative, but it also plays much more into the wit and the humor of the game, which I don't shy away from, but I don't focus on. I think that there are people that do that a lot better than I do. Like Plot Coalition. I think he handles that a lot better than I do. I can do it, but I wouldn't say it's a strength of mine. It's also not something I'm interested. I'm more interested in obviously the drama and a bit more of the narrative side of things. Kind of reading between the lines as to what the universe allows for. That I like. That I like doing a lot better. And I seem to be pretty good at it based off of the views.
Guide me. That trains my hands for battle and my fingers for war. The shield of democracy, the fortress of prosperity. Freedom, which subdues my enemies. Flash forth your lightning and scatter them.
It keeps fucking up the resolution. I love that shot. So I go uncredited, but I do all the camera work for all the episodes. That's a great shot. I was really pleased with that shot when I came up with it. I might go back. I might tweak it. I might tweak it. I mean, not right now. It's done, but I might make some changes to it. I love that shot. It's a great looking shot.
Shower them in lead.
Oh, he just wants to talk about himself. These episodes take months to make, in part because it's a agonizing refinement process. The reason these take months, and they do take months, is one, because it's a small team and it's mostly me doing most of the work, but two, because it's a constant refinement process of that's not as good as we can do. Is this the greatest thing ever? Fuck no. Is it progressively as good as we can do? Yeah. Every episode is as good as we can do. I look back at episode 1 and I go, ugh. Because I've learned a lot. But at the time, that was the best we could do. Same for episode 4. And it'll be the same for episode 5 and 6 and so on. But each episode is a constant refinement process. And there's a lot of times where if I'm pausing to look at a shot, I remember the times where that was really difficult to come up with those shots. Those didn't just exist. I had to find those and discover those.
And dismantle them.
Sniper is voiced by Josh, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Tagua? I don't know. And he has a bit of a bigger role coming in episode 5. Great working with him, very talented. The other thing changing atmospheres, changing terrains allowed us to do was a decision that allowed us to do cooler things. I had mentioned a couple other things: low gravity, harsher lighting environment, but also the sound design as well. That was a fun challenge that we gave our sound designer. Maybe less of a challenge given his talent, but certainly definitely a fun break from the norm. It's cool stuff that, like, for stuff like this, because we have the narrative. When we had the core of the episode, which was the trial and the truth enforcer and the escape pod. But once we had that, we were able to add more fun stuff for people to watch. We were able to give a little bit more. This one is a little bit more of kind of a complete meal as opposed to the other episodes. A lot of the other episodes are a bit more like, here's the meat, and it's a lot of it. Or something like episode 4, because I call it a turn page episode, where it really just exists to introduce a character. With something like this, we had to, but it was also fun to add a little bit more, I don't want to say fluff, but like, side dishes to it, where you have the meat already made, and then you can add some potatoes and a couple of biscuits or something. But it was a lot of fun to come up with, with other fun things that we could add to it to make it feel a bit more bigger and impressive. And again, like, if you watch the previous version of episode 4 that we have, I don't know if that's released at this time or not, but like the draft version of episode 4 was awful. I thought about canceling it or at least rolling it into episode 4. Like, it was awful. It was really bad.
Suck on this, you socialist toasters!
So I got a comment about how the action felt disjointed and put on top, kind of as an afterthought. And as you've probably picked up, the answer is because it was. Because right what we're about to go into here is the actual meat of it. Everything else surrounding it was layered on top afterwards. But to me, I think that also works. I think that works because that's kind of what the point of the episode is that out of everything that's going on around what we're about to watch, this is actually what's important. I had a comment. Somebody said that they wish that the truth enforcers were more involved in like the active war front, like you saw them kind of like fight alongside with the bots and stuff. And to me, that doesn't quite make sense for the kind of character that we're setting up, who's kind of more of a CIA. I don't know if CIA is the right word, but more of like a. What am I trying to say? He's weeding out dissidents and stuff. He's going behind the scenes to make sure everything is still being complied with. Like, you don't need guys like that on the front lines. You need guys like that in the background, going in and out of the ranks, making sure that everything's still good, just invisibly fixing little things here and there. And the big war, like, that's just going to happen. That's already decided. That's just going to happen. But what really matters is here. What really matters is maintaining that belief and that discipline among the troops and among the ranks, and especially if, as you see here in a minute, we get a dissident who's higher up in the ranks. Well, that's a problem. That's something you need the truth enforcers. You don't need the truth enforcers to take out a bot or take out a wave of bots or whatever. You need them for stuff like this. You need them for the covert stuff. That's what you need them for. Damn, did I really put this many ads? There's something, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this thought out, but there's something I've been trying to do with the cinematography. Because one of the decisions early on was to have the camera be more handheld and guerrilla style with more of a reactionary element. But here in episode 4, after the action, we go into a much more controlled camera. And I've been trying to think about the way to articulate this, because that was actually intentional. And you'll see this when we release episode 5 and then episode 6. But it's kind of, it's some kind of, I'm not quite sure how to articulate it, but it's more of that the camera being more controlled and on track shows that this is now something, the narrative is a bit more being controlled here, which is what now happens when we have Inquisitor Fyodor, the guy in white, come in. He's got everything in control, including maybe even the camera, to where it goes from its guerrilla handheld to its more on track, more drone-like, more ethereal, ever-present kind of thing, which hopefully is the vibe that we give for Inquisitor Fyodor. There was something else I wanted to say about it. Like, there was this idea of, like, you know that what happened actually happens based off of, like, what the camera, like, the war stuff, that actually happens because the camera's actually there and it's present and it's constantly shaking and jittering and stuff. But this, when the camera's kind of, like, floating and it's ethereal, and that kind of signifies that this may or may not have happened, but not in the sense, like, it happened in the sense that you and I watched it and we made it and animated it, but it may not have happened in terms of, like, whether or not it was reported back to officials. Because this is kind of this is going to, especially this is going to be a moment that you wouldn't see in game. In fact, genuinely you wouldn't, because this whole escape pod thing, the escape pod is a side mission from the game, but it doesn't house people, as far as we know, in it. This was definitely a creative liberty on our end of just looking through the different objectives in the game and going, well, what can we write a narrative about? Well, there's the escape pod. Now, why on earth would somebody need an escape pod? I mean, everything's great. Why would you need an escape pod? You don't need an escape pod. Why would you need to escape? Why would you need to escape? Well, what if you knew something? Well, what is there to know? Well, there's this thing called District 48. Well, if somebody knew that, maybe that would cause them to need an escape pod. Okay. Now we've got a narrative going. Well, what if a higher up? What if it's an officer? Because if it's a cadet, if it's just some guy, and originally it was just some guy. It was just a low level. You don't need a truth enforcer for that. You just smack the guy around and re-educate him. But you get a commander. You get a higher up. That's trouble. Because commanders have been around for a little bit. There's this kind of invisible rule that, like, that like, your seniority is based off of how long you've been alive in the Helldivers universe, which, I mean, there's some truth to that in our reality. So if you get somebody higher up, That's problematic because they know like, what do they know? Because they've been around. Like, if you pay attention, our characters are kind of on like an IQ bell curve. So anybody that's like a cadet, they're green and sold out. They have no idea what's going on, but they're just happy to be here. And they're hyped on patriotism and they're ready to go. Man, give me a gun and I'll just shoot. They're ready to go. Then you have the sergeants. They're kind of the top of the bell curve. They've been around for long enough. They've survived long enough to where they kind of know what's going on. They're a little bit more experienced. They know how to handle themselves a bit better, but they're also starting to kind of ask questions. Then we have the captains and the commanders and stuff. So anytime we call somebody captain, especially off of like episode 2, those are the guys that are on the opposite end. They're sold out, but they know what's going on, unlike the cadets. I forget if I've talked about this before or not. And so this episode is kind of an offshoot of the bell curve where we have a commander that's going rogue. That is definitely something that you need the truth enforcers for. Because that guy knows something. We don't know what he knows. But it has to be corrected. You know, like, you get a sergeant talking about shit. Even a sergeant, definitely a cadet, talking shit like this. You need to worry about that. You just pull him aside. Hey, pal, like, come on. Get a commander, though. If a commander starts talking, that's trouble. That's what you need the truth enforcers for. You don't need them for the war and stuff like that. But then again, a scene like this, and to hopefully tie this back to the cinematics, with a scene like this is not something that you would let slip. I don't know why I did quotation marks. It's very late in the morning. This is not a scene that you would show publicly. I think the first half of what I said about the cinematics makes sense, but the second half doesn't quite make sense. It makes sense in my head, but then it also doesn't. But anyway.
Why won't this liberty-forsaken thing open?
Cadet and the commander are voiced by Matthew Smart. It was great to work with him. Hope to have him back again once we have some more character slots open. Unfortunately, we don't have enough work. We just don't have enough work for everyone at this point. It was great working with him. And then the iconic, as far as I'm concerned. I have a story talking about us casting DoofGuy. You should definitely go listen to it. Casting him was a very... It sounds stupid to say, but it was a very tough decision to cast him. But it's scary for me to think about it now. I almost didn't cast him, which is bizarre when you hear this.
What do we have, Cadet?
Sweet liberty. Sir, escape pod. One of ours.
Survivors?
I mean, we'll keep watching it. It just gets better. But like, I almost didn't cast him for that. The aura, the command, the presence, the voice. I mean, just go listen to the story if you want. I have a lot more to talk about. But yeah, DoofGuy, his biggest following is on TikTok. He does a lot of voice work over there. You should definitely go follow him. He's also on Instagram, maybe on YouTube. I don't know, but DoofGuyVA, definitely go. So let's talk about... So when it came to the decision of the Truth Enforcers, so there's the game Helldivers, and then there's DLC packs called War Bonds. And they offer different armor sets, weapons, and arguably playstyles for the game. And there's a War Bond called the Truth Enforcers, and that's where we get this stuff from. So there's 3 skins that come in that. One is the guys on either side of him in black. Those guys are probably the scariest and most intimidating skins in the game, not open for discussion. They give a bit more of a generic kind of mass-produced vibe. So we weren't going to have them as any kind of main character. You then have the guys in red that we just saw previously with the cartoon. Those guys give a bit more of a Sith Trooper vibe. Definitely an elite kind of unit, but still kind of more mass-produced, kind of generic. The Inspector, the guy in white, just aura. So that was the decision behind like what of those was going to who was going to be who in terms of choosing between those armor sets. So I knew that the guys in black, those were going to be kind of more of like the goon bodyguard type. The red guys, I guess, I ended up choosing more. They look a little bit more like public. To me, they kind of give a bit more of like the public face of the Truth Enforcers. Still scary and intimidating, but like if you see these guys, you know you're dead. You're gone. Some people have commented on one, the size, which it's the same size in game. I don't know what you guys' problem is, but two, the idea that he had the revolver in the first place, because he comes. There's a secondary that comes with the armor. Well, one, it's a plasma pistol, the one that comes with the armor, and that doesn't really go through helmets very well. Two, for something like this, you're not really going to want to leave any traces. The other thing, this argument doesn't work for plasma because plasma is caseless too, but a revolver is caseless. Other people were saying he should have used the verdict because it's the verdict and he gives a verdict and then shoots a guy with a pistol called the verdict. That's excellent. I love that. That fires rounds, like cases, so it would have a case ejected, which I guess actually, now that I'm thinking about it, a badass scene would have been after he fires, he reaches up and grabs the casing out of gravity and like stows it. If I were a better director, I would have thought of that sooner. But you know, for something like this, you can't leave any traces, and so. Not to mention, I mean, it's a revolver. The other thing, too, is a revolver historically was usually indicative of who was and was not. Revolvers and pistols were usually a sign of who was and was not an officer. I don't know how true that is in today's military, but in older militaries, that was how you told. That was a visual indicator as to who was and who was not an officer, was whether or not they had a pistol, especially a revolver. That's one of the ways that we distinguish who's who, especially in something like episode 2, where everybody's wearing the same armor. And ideally, my preference is to have everyone wear the standard black and yellow armor that you see on screen right here. It's my preference. But it doesn't really work out that way always for a variety of reasons. One is because fans want to see different armor sets. Two, because it helps distinguish different characters, which is very important because everybody looks the same and has their face covered, and there's very little distinguishing them. So you're limited in your visual indicators. You have to use stuff like weapons, different decals and markings, different layout patterns on the same armor. We eventually use different capes as well. And then, of course, in this episode, we use different armor sets. But there's a few reasons why we give him a revolver, A, at all, and then B, a revolver specifically. So it's to kind of help shape that aura. I've actually recently, I now consider the Inquisitor a bit of a weapons collector, so you may see him swap his sidearm now and again in future episodes, which I believe I just spoiled that he shows up in future episodes. Oh, darn.
Not sure, it's blocking our overrides.
I'll handle this, Cadet. Show those clinkers some democracy.
In the name of liberty, sir! What are the Truth Enforcers doing here?
I tried to do this shot. Thank you. I hope that's not showing up in the recording. If it's not, my resolution is getting jacked by OBS. I hope that doesn't show up in the recording. I tried to do this shot in episode 3. It ended up not really working or coming off to the audience appropriately because of the lighting and the particle effects. But this shot came out a lot better in this episode. So this is called the tilt shift effect. There's a technical explanation that I'll skip. You can go Google it. But it's also called the toy box effect because the tilting of the way that the camera is framed and the intense blurring, the depth of field around it, makes the subject look small and toy-like, hence toy box effect. Now, this shot was very intentional in that. So we'll show the build up here. So he is large and in charge. He is in center frame. He's dominant as much as he can. He's dominating. By the way, there's actually a little bit of a cheat that we do here. All the models are relatively the same height in our animation program, and so what we do is we kind of cheat his height a little bit. If you were to look below the black bars, you would notice that which you can't, you would have to go into the animation program, but you would notice that his feet are levitating off the ground. But in camera, he looks much taller and more imposing. So there's some visual cheating that we do to kind of help. And then, of course, you tilt the camera lower, which naturally gives a more intimidating presence, because when you have to look up at something, you are more intimidated. That's just how humans work. But so we have this big, impressive, powerful character.
Show those.
I need to remember to talk about that in a second. It's a funny aside. But so we then spend this next shot. We show the crest on his helmet, which shows his allegiance because it's over his head, and it's the crest of Super Earth, which is on the flag that we then next switch to. And he looks up to it. And the flag is looking down on him in this toy box effect, showing that. So he's looking at his allegiance, which is to Super Earth, but then that which is his allegiance to is looking down on him, and this shot shows what he is to that allegiance, which is just a toy soldier, hence the toy box effect. It's also a really cool shot, and it's a shot that I tried to use in episode 3. It more of came off as an homage to Helldivers 1, which is a isometric top-down. So it didn't quite come off in episode 3. It came off beautifully in this shot, and we have that. We also end up using the shot in episode 5 to carry a very similar effect. But we first wanted that shot. It was very important that we had that shot in episode 3, because that was how Cadet Cosmic was treated, was as a toy soldier, just bossed around and told what to do. So it was very important that we had that shot. And we also have this shot showing this very powerful, intimidating figure. He also is just a cog in the larger war machine. People call me a content creator. How many content creators are making dope shit like that? I fucking hate the word content creator. What the fuck does that mean?
Thank Liberty. The doors were jammed. Didn't know if I was ever.
Commander Proctor. You know who I am?
I know what you are.
Then you know why I'm here.
In case nobody notices, that drone camera is where they get the news footage from later. I don't know why I said that. That's pretty obvious, but maybe that'll blow somebody's mind. You're welcome.
Commander Arthur Proctor.
This is all we had of episode 4. And it wasn't even like this. He doesn't get out of the escape pod. They open the escape pod. The goons aren't even there. I should upload it and you guys can go watch it. But this is so much fucking better than how we originally had it. I'm going to restart and we're just going to watch it.
Commander Arthur Proctor. Call sign Oracle. The Ministry of Truth hereby charges you with the high crimes of treason against Super Earth, theft of government property, desertion of Super Earth armed forces, breach of enlistment contract, and collusion with known enemies of Super Earth. Your court-martial has been predetermined. You have been found guilty on all charges and are sentenced to a dishonorable discharge effective immediately. For the charge of collusion and breach of contract, you have been sentenced to execution. May liberty have mercy on your soul.
I like to think that this episode changed the face the wall meme. I also have been seeing this pose that the Inquisitor hits with his hand behind his back and his revolver aimed. I have been seeing that show up in a lot more fan art. And I didn't see that pose before this episode came out. I'm just saying.
May the defendant make a plea.
Your court-martial was predetermined. Pleas are nullified.
May I make an appeal?
On what grounds?
I'm sorry. I love that shot. That is one of my favorite shots that I've done so far. I love that shot. Gosh, dude. Not trying to like... Oh, I love that shot.
False flag operations to incite the Galactic War. District 48.
One of the things that I started doing, was shaping the lighting a lot more. I kind of like to have, and especially for helldivers, which relies heavily on just environmental lighting, because most of the time you're outside, you're outdoors. Even if you're in like cities and towns and stuff, it's very heavily reliant on just environment lighting. So it's important to have good environment lighting overall because it fits in more with the theme of the game. But also, I started remembering, this is an animation. I can do whatever I want. Like, I can cheat shots. I can put lights where they previously weren't or where they might not make sense. But as long as I craft them and they help emphasize the image and they don't, like, immediately jump out at people, as long as they're subtle about it, like... So I started doing a lot of kind of like light crafting. This is one of the shots that I remembered really trying to get right, to kind of get that sunlight, because how it's originally lit, you would have had to like rotate the model, and it's like, I'll fucking just stick a light in there, you know? So we did a lot of cheating with the lighting of trying to craft a bit more of the image. I'll see if I can find a better example here. We don't do it in this episode with the Inquisitor. I'll have to talk about that about a later episode.
You have evidence for this claim?
Trying to see if I can find a better example.
Super-Earth started this war, Inquisitor. The Galactic Federation started this war over 100 years ago. We weren't aggressed. We were the aggressors. That device confirms plans of a staged attack.
I think it might be too late, but you can kind of see how there's a glint. You can see it in earlier shots, but like you can kind of see how there's a bit of a glint on his helmet. That was an intentional decision to kind of give. There was something that I noticed. It's kind of obvious when you think about it, but one of the things that kind of adds life, actually, I can demonstrate it right here. One of the things that kind of adds life to a character is an eye light. When you have an eye light, it adds a little bit more life to the character. When you take away that eye light, it takes away a little bit of life. I can't really explain it other than kind of there's just kind of a feeling about it. I'll turn my light back on and you can look and see if there's a difference. There's probably a difference because there's now a light shining directly in my eyes, and it gives off a little bit more of a different feel as to maybe how I come off to you. Now, it's also 5 a.m, so I may just look like shit, and you may just go, just turn it off, Ginger. But anyway, so that's something that you pay attention to when it comes to photography and cinematics in general, is you can really help your characters by having an eye light. Well, when your characters have helmets, that's really difficult to do, unless you shine a light kind of around where their eyes would be. And so I started experimenting with that. We'll see that actually in episode 5. I don't do it always, but I noticed that it kind of helped give a little bit more life to their helmets. And that's very important. I get a lot of comments about people saying that I really should make like a separate video on this. But I've been getting compliments about how, I'm not going to say realistic, but how like believable and lifelike our characters are when it comes to the animation. despite the fact that they have helmets, you can really kind of tell what they're thinking. Although actually, we're coming up into a moment that's rather interesting. Maybe I'm going to see if I can tie this. There's a lot of threads on this, so I'm going to see if I can tie this together. But anyway, so we did a lot of shaping of light in this episode to kind of help set the mood and set the tone. We even added eye light, like that right there. You can kind of see there's a bit of a glint on his helmet.
False flag.
That doesn't really make sense if you sit there and think about it, but it's subtle enough to where you don't really notice it, but it also kind of adds that you can kind of tell that he's a little bit more alive, because there's some kind of light reflecting off of him, like there is an actual light reflecting off of my eye into the camera, and you can see it. Anyway, maybe I can talk a little bit about doing the helmets and stuff here in a second.
This war, over 100 federal agents on civilian installations in District 48.
So there's quite a few comments about. Let me back up and we'll watch this scene.
Earth started this war, Inquisitor. The Galactic Federation started this war over 100 years ago. We weren't aggressed. We were the aggressors. That device confirms plans of a staged attack against our people carried out by federal agents on civilian installations in District 48.
I hesitate to cut it there because the next shot's awesome. So there's quite a few comments wondering what the Inquisitor is thinking and feeling here. There's quite a few comments suggesting that there were quite a few people that were like, it feels like he just kind of had a tantrum and you just threw it down and shot him. And to me, that's not it. Now, the reason people have differing opinions as to how he's thinking and feeling about this is because he has a helmet and you can't really tell facial. So, okay. And this is where it gets weird, because I get a lot of comments saying, apparently some executive from the Halo TV show or whatever said, okay, this is such a long story. Okay. So, the Halo TV show, apparently they took off Master Chief's helmet. Well, apparently you don't do that. Understandable. You just, and the reason you don't take off his helmet is because you're supposed to be the Master Chief. If you take off his helmet, then he has a face, and now you can't be the Master Chief. That's why you don't take off Master Chief's helmet, is because the player is supposed to be Master Chief. That's why Gordon Freeman doesn't talk. It's because you're supposed to be Gordon Freeman. There's also probably, no. That's why you don't take off Master Chief's helmet, because the player is supposed to be Master Chief. Well, in the Halo TV show, they did that. They took off his helmet, which you don't do. And apparently the reason for that was because it's very hard to express emotions in a helmet. You can't see what people are thinking because they're wearing a helmet. A lot of people are taking that, and they're watching my series, and they're going, well, this guy, he nailed all the character expressions and stuff, and they're all wearing helmets. Hell, you can look at Star Wars The Clone Wars, the animated series. They're pretty good with that. They still take their helmets off all the time. The problem is that it's true. You can't tell what people are thinking. I don't have a helmet to demonstrate. But the problem with that is that when a character has a helmet on, you genuinely don't know what they're thinking, because 90% of the emotion comes through from the face. Now, there's other aspects that help out, but when the character is wearing a helmet, it demands more from every other aspect of the filmmaking process. It demands more from the cameras. It demands more from the lighting. It surely demands more from the animation, and especially if you're doing motion capture like we are here, it demands a lot more from the body language, because you're losing the entire face. The face can tell you instantly how somebody's feeling or how somebody's feeling. But if I cover up my face, you don't know how I'm feeling unless I do this or unless I do this. So it's true. You can't, you really do lose. It's not that you lose emotion from a character. It's that it demands more from every other aspect. You can tell somebody is happy by just having them smile, but if the face is covered, then you need to get the camera in, and you need to make the lighting brighter, and then you need to add some happy music, and he needs to do some happy gestures. But that's expensive. it's much more expensive to do all that stuff than just say, hey, Jim, smile. Okay. All right, we got the shot. Now, is that why they took off his helmet? I don't know. I wasn't on the show. It would make sense, though. They're trying to do it on the cheap and make a profit. But, so anyways, so to tie that back to this guy, well, a lot of people had different interpretations as to how he felt about this because they can't see his face. And some people came off, they thought he was having a tantrum. I don't think he's having a tantrum. I think that he just got fed up. I think that he got fed up with just hearing this guy just spout bullshit and believe it. There's some other, like, some people are like, why did he even hear him out? The more you can get him dead to rights, the better position you're in. He's just going through the motion. He's just letting him hang himself. And, I mean, I think the bigger question is, like, why does the commander even say anything? And I guess for his perspective, he's like, I know the game. I'm already cooked. I might as well tell the truth. I might as well say something. Maybe he's on my side. Maybe he's not. I don't know. But so I don't think there's anything problematic with the scene. At least the way that I understand it. The way other people understand it, well, yeah, that's problematic, but that's because they don't understand it quite the same way that I do. And I'm the director, so I get to decide what the understanding is. And if you don't like that, you can go make your own animation. But yeah, I think that he just had it. He's just like, this is such undemocratic bullshit. This is just lies. And there were actually some lines that I had written to help communicate that didn't make the final cut. So there's a couple of reasons for people coming across with a different interpretation, but that's my understanding of what the Inquisitor is feeling here. He's just like, I've had it with this guy's bullshit.
What happened at District 48?
An automaton sympathizer carried out a terrorist attack on Super Earth territory, killing 8 civilians.
Some folks in the comment were saying that he should have shot the guards because the guards heard treason. That's stupid. But it is why he turned his gun on the guard. It's also, I'll admit, I'm ashamed. It is a moment of exposition for the audience that doesn't know what District 48 is. But it works because that's kind of the whole... In fact, I can't find it now, which is hilarious, but I found another Wikipedia article a year ago about District 48 that apparently there were conflicting narratives about what District 48 actually was. There were conflicting official narratives about what it actually was, which for me was like, oh, fantastic. And so to get 2 different interpretations, one which gets you killed and the other which doesn't, that works out. And it gets us beyond just it's expositing for the audience that doesn't know what District 48 is. Which, by the way, when I was writing the script, no one knew what it was. And then the game exploded in popularity, added PlayStation and Xbox players, and now everybody knows what District 48 is. So at the time, this was a little unknown thing, although suffering from the popularity of a video game. But so no, I think that's stupid. No, he didn't need to shoot his own guards. So anyway, I felt like I was going to say more about that, but maybe it'll come back to me.
Appeal denied.
Okay, I keep getting people saying you can't have fire in space. To my knowledge, if you have a fuel source and you have something, if you have your own, if it has its own source of ignition and you have a fuel source for it, which we do. So the incendiary grenade is its own trigger source, and his corpse is its own fuel, is the fuel source. So maybe you can get me on like the height of the flame, but it's definitely possible. You can't have, you can have like a very short kind of condensed kind of flame in a low to no atmosphere, as long as it has its own fuel source, and as long as it has its own trigger and fuel source, and the corpse and the grenade provide both of those things. So maybe you can get me on like how big the flames are, but I think it flies. What definitely wouldn't fly was another idea I had thought, which is one of the guards was going to have a flamethrower. But that definitely did not fly. That would definitely not fly. Because the fuel would disperse. You would have to like cram it like right. You would have to like get it like up underneath him in order for it to catch fire. So I think I'm safe, unless somebody far smarter than me, which is most of the population of the Earth, can demonstrate that I'm wrong. I'm going to say that I'm right. I'm going to pull a shut the fuck up. This comment mostly comes from YouTube Shorts, but a lot of people were like, wow, they just called in an orbital to eviscerate the corpse? No, they called in an orbital to take out the escape pod. You got to get that taken care of too. You can't have that lying around.
Inquisitor, we have ordnance here now. What's your status?
The enemy had rigged the pod to blow. I'm mobile. Extracted 10 mics.
And then, of course, the official report of what happened, which is nothing. It's a booby trap. We're good. Good evening, I'm Liar Pantfire with Armchair News. Hey, that guy sounds familiar. We interrupt this program to bring you a special dissident execution. Okay, so like 7 million people have watched this. Okay, no. Most people haven't seen this, but like 200,000 people have watched this. Nobody has talked about the lower yellow. Which, I mean, to be fair, it's not that big of a thing, but it does tell you it does tell you what happens in episode 5. Here today, Truth Enforcers were able to apprehend it, or it does tell you what happened. Like, it's a spoiler for episode 5. It's not that big of a deal. It's not like an ARG or whatever, but nobody's talked about it. No. Dissident sympathizer and bring him swiftly. It also is moving very fast. I probably shouldn't have done it that fast. To justice. The convicted criminal was charged with over 9,000 counts of disloyalty and was a known proponent of conspiracy theories. Coming up next are Your Neighbor's Dissident Agents. A new study reveals that prolonged exposure to television could be used to brainwash you and your loved ones. Stay tuned to our mandatory 16-hour coverage to learn more. Screenshot. So that's episode 4. Did I miss anything? Is there anything else I wanted to talk about it? It's great working with all these guys. Thanks to Plot for lending his voice there. It's great to work with him. Tagua? I don't know how to pronounce your name, bro. I'm so sorry. Yeah, guys, that was... so, all right. Well, hey... Thanks for checking it out. If you guys haven't seen the series, it's going to be up on the channel. Episode 5 is coming out hopefully rather quickly. That was a director's commentary on episode 4. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. We have an Instagram. You can follow us. What is it called? It's called like Helldivers Forever. We're on Instagram. You can follow us there. I post stuff on the stories, little teasers for where I'm at with work in progress and stuff. If you like what we do, you can support us by becoming a member, YouTube member, or a Patreon. There'll be links down in the description. We also have a Discord. Not much goes on there, but I use that to just kind of post like screenshots and stuff. YouTube posts doesn't really handle that very well, but Discord I can upload fuller resolution, like work in progress and stuff like that. So, and then of course, if you become a member, you get access to behind the scenes, and you can also see episodes a day or two early before everybody else, and then they come out for free for everyone. So, you know, don't panic about it. But if you like what we do and you want to support us, all of that goes to pay cast and crew. We hire real animators, we hire real voice actors to work on this with us. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys. Want to see you guys. Take care.